Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. Welcome to RMGB Recommends Episode 2. Once again I shall be checking out 4 recent releases that I've been playing over the last week or so and giving my early impressions of each. The format will be the same as last time. There will be the official trailer for each game followed by my thoughts. Let's get going.
You believe it's dead. It's not. You give all you got. It's got more. You pause to think. It won't. Prepare to fight the root of all evil.
Remnant from the Ashes is tough, very tough, especially if you're a lone wolf like me who insists on trying to play co-op games alone due to the self-imposed pressure of having to play well and not let your teammates down. The influences of Dark Souls are clear for all to see. There are fog doors, healing flasks and bonfire analogues that all act in exactly the same way. The key difference though is that Remnant is a shooter and is randomly generated. These two elements do more than enough to elevate it from being just another Dark Souls clone to something that feels unique. I find the shooting easier to get on with than the close quarters hacking and stabbing of Dark Souls, and I deliberately picked the hunter archetype for their skill with long range guns. This means I can keep my enemies at a distance and still dish out high amounts of damage with precise headshots or wherever else the weak spot happens to be on a particular monster. The game can indeed get frustrating at times. The very first boss killed me almost a dozen times before I was finally triumphant. Part of this was due to the weakness of my character who was just starting out on their journey, and part was due to the way the boss fight works with the waves of annoying explosive scrub enemies who charge at you and poison you if you walk through the cloud that is left behind when they detonate. Many players will probably persist with the version of the world that they were dealt with at the start, but I decided to embrace the option to re-roll the campaign and treated the game almost like a roguelike. After so many failed attempts at a boss, I would deliberately reset my campaign and explore the rearranged version of the opening section, building up my stockpiles of scrap and iron so I could upgrade my equipment, and improving my traits by earning enough experience and finding tomes of knowledge that are scattered here and there. With each reset, my character and my own skill grew slightly stronger until I eventually overcame the boss. By the time this video is published, the first free update for the game will have been released to the public, which adds a new dungeon, boss, weapons and most importantly to me, a new adventure mode that will allow players to re-roll individual sections of the game and not the whole campaign like they had to at launch. This is great news because it means I can continue to play in my weird roguelike manner and not have to completely start over each time. I just unlocked a new trait that increases the amount of damage I do when I hit an enemy's weak point, which will be extremely useful once I have leveled it up. So for the next few hours I will probably be grinding out experience and tomes so that I can increase the usefulness of this trait, making progress even easier for me. I haven't actually made much headway into the campaign yet, but that's fine. I am enjoying the game and I'm prepared to spend as long as it takes to complete it my way. Remnant from the Ashes very quickly went from a game that I had no interest in at all to one I was curious about, then something I absolutely had to play, and finally one of my favourite current releases. I imagine it will be some time before I'm ready to give it a full review if I ever manage to complete it at all, but I already feel that I've got my money's worth out of it. The free update sounds great, hopefully it's the first of many. This game is well worth checking out if you're even remotely curious about it.
about it while we still wore the colors. All this time out in the freak show when shit like this didn't matter anymore. When we wrote out a farewell without Sarah, I knew that we were leaving everything behind.
What did you do?
Everything that mattered was gone.
Folks here in a lot of pain, Deke. You find his stash. You bring it to me. To me, Deke. You do that, we'll see what we can do for you.
Deke, bro.
And I know what kind of man he is. What he's done. He done any worse than you? Ricky? How about me?
You're afraid to be here. You're afraid to be a part of something. We need you here, and that scares the hell out of you. We have to look out for each other. It's all we got.
You could have saved a few lives.
There was no hope, there was no time, there was no room, okay? We'd already turned on each other by the time the hordes arrived. Let's go!
Hope you're right about your old lady, Deke. Gotta ask you something. What does it matter if everyone else is dead?
PlayStation.
I enjoyed the first few heavily tutorialised hours of Days Gone, but when I was finally set loose in the open world I got quite frustrated with it. I think this is my own fault. I tried to destroy some freaker nests with just my rubbish starting weapons and a barely levelled character and got torn to pieces over and over again. I haven't touched the game since, but when I do, I need to take a step back, build up my skills and try to get some decent weaponry like a shotgun before going near those nests again. Zombie stories, be they video games, TV shows, comics or movies, are 10 a penny these days, so I didn't really find the setting of Days Gone terribly appealing when it was first announced. Good word of mouth led me to eventually check it out once the price had gone down a bit, and like I said, I have enjoyed the opening few hours where you're introduced to the main character of Deacon St. John, his bike, and the rather terrifying version of Bend, Oregon that the action is set in. I haven't really got much more to say about the game at the moment. It looks like there is a ton of content in there at the very least, as I have access to many different story paths already. It is a bit hard to tell which is a side quest and which is the main path sometimes. Maybe that's deliberate. At any rate, I need to spend a lot more time with Days Gone before I am ready to give my genuine opinion about it, so check back again at a later date for my final review.
The once heroic alchemist is on a mad rampage. Emberhammer! The alchemist is headed south to the desert city of Zarephash. The mighty engineer and his squire are planning to intercept and will do whatever it takes to unravel his dastardly plans. Emberhammer!
Hey, are you gonna narrate this the entire time? Because we...
Yup! Torchlight II, coming soon to Xbox One. Learn more at torchlight2.com. Emberhammer!
I am extremely familiar with Torchlight 2, having put over 100 hours into the game back when it was first released for the PC in 2012. A console port has been a long time coming, and while I feel it has arrived a bit too late, I am glad to see that it's finally here. It's been quite a while since I last played through the vanilla campaign unmodded. so I decided to pick up the Xbox One X copy of the game and see what Panic Button has managed to do with it. It's pretty much exactly as I remember it being all those years ago, a competent Diablo-style game that doesn't quite manage to propel the genre forward as much as I would have liked it to. Whereas Diablo 3 changed the game by doing away with potions that you could spam to stay alive, Torchlight 2 very much lets you do this. This lowers the need for skill and does mean that you can pretty much complete the game by just spamming one or two abilities over and over, which is a little boring to say the least. Diablo 3 was set up to make you use your entire repertoire of skills, especially when you start to get into the Torment difficulty levels, whereas Torchlight 2 now feels quite archaic in comparison. Here's hoping that the forthcoming Torchlight Frontiers shakes things up a bit. Up until I got to Act 3, the game performed solidly with decent but rather last-gen looking graphics, featuring an art style very similar to that of World of Warcraft. The PC version was never given official controller support, but people got around this by creating various custom controller configurations via Steam. Panic Button have done a good job mapping the controls over to the Xbox One pad. I would have appreciated the addition of a dodge or a roll though, which is another thing Blizzard added when they brought Diablo 3 over to the consoles. When I did get to Act 3, the performance of the game suddenly took a dive, with a truly abysmal frame rate. This got a bit better when I left town, but it was still noticeable in the dungeons as well a little bit. I'm hoping this is a one-off and when I go back things will be improved, but I haven't played the game since I encountered these issues. It is also something of a shame, though understandable, that there is a lack of mods on the consoles. While unmodded Torchlight 2 is a fairly solid experience, worth playing through at least once, some of the mods that have come out over the years improve the base game immensely, from the complete overhaul and rebalancing that is Synergies, to other mods that add a vast array of new pet types, or increase the variety of dungeon scenery, or give you additional character classes. It would have been truly amazing to have access to these in the console version. Instead we're stuck with the standard game, which though good, is not as good as it could be and is definitely showing its age in key areas. The upside of all this is that the game is nice and cheap and is still a complete riot when played through with a party of 4 good mates. The cycle of kill, loot, level up and repeat is as addictive as it's ever been. If you have never played Torchlight 2 before, I would say it's worth doing so.
Find what you're looking for?
Yeah. And now we need to kill it.
I'm not gonna lie. It's real ugly out there.
Down!
Can we watch each other's backs? Like always. You got it, Carmine.
Ooh, did you see that spray?
A clean kill. Well, I'm sick. Get out of the venom!
Pump the buck of blood.
Run for it! We gotta leave now!
Come out, wherever you are! Yeah! You remember me? Now's the fun part, bitch!
I am now roughly halfway through the campaign mode of Gears 5 and I am enjoying myself, though a few early access bugs have done their best to spoil things. Most annoying of these is a checkpoint glitch that means the game often gets stuck when trying to autosave and will eventually dump you out to the Xbox One home screen. You will lose whatever progress you made since the last checkpoint and have to do it again. This happened to me after a particularly tough encounter which I finally managed to beat on my 5th attempt, which I was quite upset about. Luckily I pretty much had that battle nailed by that point, so it only took me 2 further attempts to beat it after that. When the game is working properly, it is quite stunning to behold. It runs at full 4K resolution with a solid 60 frames per second, and superbly implemented HDR lighting, and looks really great. From the colourful introduction to the bleak and snowy wasteland of Act 2, the design of the world is jaw-dropping. While Gears of War 4 was no slouch when it was released, Gears 5 really stepped things up a notch visually. The audio too is really good with a fantastic use of surround sound. If you have full 7.1 Dolby Atmos, you'll really be in for a treat. As for me, I just have my trusty old 5.1 surround system, which is still pretty nice regardless. As for the gameplay, the fighting really hasn't changed all that much. It's still the same cover-based shooting that we love, and it's still as fun as it's always been. There are some new enemy types, including the Flock, which is a large group of flying leeches that will devour you like piranhas if you get in their way. The main way that Gears 5 shakes things up is the addition of large open world spaces during Acts 2 and 3, in a snowy and desert environment respectively. I didn't mind this too much, but to be honest it doesn't really add all that much to the game. When you reach your destination, the game pretty much goes back to how it's always been with the linear mission before you get back to roaming around the open section again. There are some side quests that are worth doing because they will give you an upgrade for your flying robot buddy Jack. One of these changes his flash ability from something that simply stuns an enemy for a few seconds to something that actually freezes them in ice, where they can then be shattered to pieces, which is extremely handy in a tight situation. Of course, the campaign is merely the icing on the cake, because there are traditional versus modes, the fan favourite Horde mode, and a brand new one called Escape to play as well. I haven't really touched any of these yet because I like to enjoy the story first before getting into them, so I'll probably have an update later when I have got around to checking them out. I probably won't be playing the versus modes very much, but I am interested in trying Escape and Horde, especially as you can play them with bots. This is great because it means I can enjoy them without worrying about letting my team down. Tying everything together is a new progression system called the Tour of Duty, which is basically the same as the Battle Pass model that many games use nowadays. As you pass daily and more longer term challenges, you will unlock new characters, skins, emotes and other stuff. Every 3 months there will be a new Tour of Duty with new stuff to unlock. A nice incentive to keep coming back. Now that the game is available for everyone to play and not just those who spent 80 quid for the privilege or Game Pass Ultimate members, the game should be patched up in a more playable state. I shall probably be playing the rest of the campaign over the course of this weekend and then trying out the other modes soon after. That's it for another episode. There will be one more coming at least, then I shall reassess whether it's actually worth my time making these. The first episode has hardly set any records for the amount of views, so I'll probably call it quits after the next one if things don't improve. There are other videos I could be making instead. See you in the next one. In the meantime, take care.